So welcome to Fox Chase Farm. I'm Zach. I'm going to be talking to you about the wonderful world of wildlife. So, what is wildlife exactly? We're going to be talking about something that we see all the time, but yet we don't really know exactly what they may or may not be. So today we're going to be talking about a specific area of wildlife called mammals. So, what is a mammal exactly? Good. So we are mammals, you are mammals, your dog and your cat, they are all mammals. But there's other aspects of wildlife too, including reptiles and amphibians. Those are your snakes and your turtles. But there's also things like birds. But today we're going to be sticking to wildlife specifically. Now, what is exactly mammals, and what do you think we know about mammals? So all mammals are the same thing. We all have very specific characteristics. We all are warm-blooded. We all have hair somewhere, whether it's on the top of our heads or all over our bodies. And another thing is we all breathe oxygen. So even though there's stuff like whales and dolphins who live in the middle of the ocean, they're still mammals, yet they still come up to breathe all the time. So we're going to be talking specifically about the mammals that you and I can see kind of often, or maybe not as often, but still are around us. The more common mammals that we're going to discuss. So we're going to start by going over a few key words. Now, what may be, when I say camouflage, what might you think of? Good. So camouflage is when we kind of blend in with our surroundings. So we're going to talk about three distinctive words. We're going to be talking about counter shading, cryptic, and disruptive. Now, what do you think those words might mean? What might counter shading be? Or cryptic? Or disruptive? Now, they're all very close. Counter shading is kind of when we have the bottom side is different color than the top side. So the bottom might be lighter while the back side is darker. We'll see an example of that later on. But what do you think cryptic might be? Good, well, close. Close. Cryptic is when the coat matches their surroundings. So what might disruptive be? Good. Disruptive is when the coat breaks up patterns. So it's not all one color, or it's not all the same thing. It's very different or disruptive. So we're going to be talking about a few animals that have a bunch of these different characteristics. So we're going to be discussing a few of the main mammals that we can see around here or close by anyway. So the first mammal that we're going to discuss is this guy right here. So what do you think this might be? We have the head right here. We have the fur. And here's its little tail. Now, it's often mistaken as a dog. So your pets that you have, it's very similar to this. He has many different hunting habits, but it's all depending on what it eats. So what exactly do you think this guy might eat? Good, close. So this guy is what we call omnivores. Now, what do you think an omnivore is? Nice. So an omnivore is something that eats a little bit of everything. So omnivore eats both plants and animals. So what exactly is something that eats only mammals or animals? Carnivore, good job. That eats only meat. While an herbivore is something that eats only plants. So this guy is an omnivore because he eats both. It's very opportunistic. Opportunistic means it will take any opportunities it can get. So this guy, because it's very opportunistic, where do you think it may live? All those are right, because this guy lives almost everywhere, whether it's the deserts, the grasslands, the woodlands, the mountains, neighborhoods, and even large cities. This guy is found right here in Philadelphia itself. It can live anywhere. Now, this guy is almost a top predator. But there are a few things that will eat this guy or are predators to this guy. So they include things like bears, cougars or mountain lions, wolves, and humans. Humans are a predator to almost every mammal. But to communicate, when this guy wants to talk to, let's say, his buddy over on the other side of the mountain, he wants to talk to that. How do you think it communicates? How does your dog communicate? It barks, right? Yeah. So this guy barks, but it also makes a bunch of other noises, including wails, or hips, or yelps, squeals, and it howls, and like you hear a wolf. This guy also howls. Now, when we talk about it being a young one, 6 months old or less, what do you call your young dog? A puppy, right? This also is called a pup. So when it's less than 6 months old or a young baby, it's called a pup as well. So what do you think this guy might be? See, look at all the coloring and all the patterns. This is a coyote. Very good. So this is a coyote. Coyotes are very similar to your pet dogs, but they are in the canine family. So different animals are in the canine family, which we're going to discuss later. But this here is a coyote. So let's see what else we have here. Now look at this guy. So look at his face. There's the color. Look at this color. Now we're going to come down here. Look at the tail. Look at that white tipped tail. So, this is something that is often mentioned in tales and stories with a reputation of being sly and cunning. So that might give it away there. But we'll see if we can get some more facts. It can jump as high as 6.5 feet tall. Now that's a large jump. I can't jump that high. But this guy can. Now it has a bushy tail with a white tip. So what do you think this might be? Look at that color. What do you think that is? It's red. So what do you think this might be? Good, it's a red fox. So this guy is a red fox. Now, this is also related to the coyote and your pet dogs. This is also in the canine family. But something about this is they're a little smaller. And they eat many different things too. They love chickens because they eat my chickens all the time. I have pet chickens. I had many, and this has eaten at least 24 of my chickens. It's eaten almost 24 chickens. But it also eats many other things. It loves different things, including mice and voles. So what it'll do is it'll cross the land, and it'll hear. Once it hears a little mouse, it'll stop. Once it knows where the mouse is, it'll jump up and go right and catch it. And it'll eat it. And it'll just keep moving along, see what else it can eat. So we're going to talk about another canine or something related to your pet dog. We'll discuss that a little later. We'll talk about the next animal now, though. Now, this. Most people want to hold their nose right away when they see this. But we'll see what this is first. This is an mammal that we sometimes see around here. A male is called a buck. A female is called a doe. But something else that we have is also called a buck and a doe. But the key point with this one is its baby is a kit. Now, when this guy is bitten by a rattlesnake, it won't affect it. If a rattlesnake bites us, we're in deep trouble. We better go see the doctor and have them fix us. But another thing about this is it loves honey. But what else? What creates honey? Bees. Bees make honey. So this guy will come along, go to the beehive, eat as much honey as it wants. But the bees, no matter how many times they sting it, it won't bother them. Now, what might you think this is? See the line right there? The white line there? This is called a striped skunk. So this is one of the most common skunks that we have around here. There are other different kinds, not really in Pennsylvania or even Philadelphia area. There's none that are around here. But in the world, there are so many other different kinds of skunks. There might be striped skunks like this guy. There might be spotted skunks. There's some called a pygmy spotted. There's some called a striped polecat skunk. There are many different kinds of skunks. But we'll discuss some. This guy is the one that you kind of will go out and be like, whew, what's that smell? It's a skunk. We'll discuss another animal, pretty cool too. This guy right here. So here's the face. There's its ear. And it is a big round circle. What do you think this might be? Good. Well, we'll see. So this guy makes great houses. They are called lodges, but they also contain two dens. So inside that big building, it makes two dens where it kind of lives. One for drying off after entering the lodge. So if this is drying off, what does that mean? Maybe it lives in water, or near water at least. So after the first one where it dries off, there's a second one, which is where the family lives and socializes. So maybe you kind of stick with your family and have a living room. This is essentially the living room of the lodge. Now, I create something called dams, which are, it blocks the water so that water can't flow. So say there's a stream coming by, they'll build this dam, which prevents the water from coming through, and it'll fill the creek up, and it'll create a lake, a pond, or something very similar to that. Now, this guy is very interesting because he has eyelids. So how you and I have eyelids right here, they have something called see-through eyelids. So when they're swimming around, they can see. So when they're swimming and they can see, they know if there's something in front of them so they don't run into it, or they know where they're swimming. Now, this guy, when it lives in its family, it's called a colony. Now, another interesting thing about this is it is the second largest rodent in the world. So, what do you think this might be? I'll give you a close-up view. What do you think it is? Great, it's a beaver. So this is a beaver. They are aquatic, so they do live in water. And what they'll do is they will create little beaver hutches or different kind of lodges along the water, and that's where they live. They'll cut down trees or they'll find fallen branches and they'll create these beaver lodges for them to live in. But now, what do they eat? What might something like this eat? Great, they love green branches. So what they'll do is they'll cut down trees. Now they mostly want the large sticks or part of the trees, but they'll eat the tender green twigs, the most tender, the newest stuff that was just grown on the tree. Now, this is a rodent. This is the world's second largest rodent. We'll see another rodent here. This guy's a little guy. And look at the tail there. What do you think this might be? Now, they build nests. That is called a dray. What they'll do is they'll climb up in trees and they'll build this nest. It's typically made out of sticks and leaves and a bunch of other different things that they can find within the area that they live. Now, where might this guy live? If we're saying sticks and trees, yeah, they live in neighborhoods, they live in parks, they live in pretty much anywhere that they can find a tree. But what is this guy? Well, you're close, you're good. We'll see. So they bury their food and sometimes forget it. And that's how forests are actually grown a lot. So this guy creates so many different forests by, let's say, there's an acorn tree or an oak tree. What they'll do is they'll grab these acorns and they'll go around, dig holes, plant the acorns, and it's a way of them preserving their food so they can come back later and find it and then eat it, specifically in the wintertime when food is hard to come by. But the thing about them is they forget all the time where they leave their food. So what they do is they bury these acorns. They'll come back, let's say they bury it in September, then they'll come back in not October, not November, not December, not January, maybe February, because they want to eat that acorns because there's no food around. So they come back in February, they can't find it. So what happens in the springtime then, if they do find it, they'll eat it, but if not, in the springtime, they planted that acorn. So what happens? That acorn is going to grow into a new oak tree. So that's how some of the forests are grown, by animals like this. So when I feel threatened, I kind of make a barking noise. So it's not as loud as your dog, but it makes a barking noise, and it'll flash its tail. It'll constantly be shaking its tail. Now, it'll also stamp its feet. So when you're mad, you sometimes stamp your feet. This guy will do the same. Now this guy is gray, but white on the stomach. Now, what word did we discuss that has dark on the back and white on the stomach? That's great, counter shading. So this is an example of a counter shading animal. But what is this guy? So this guy is gray, and it lives all up in the trees and neighborhood parks and sometimes right along the streets where you guys live. This is a gray squirrel. That's great. There's also other kinds of squirrels called red squirrels, there's fox squirrels, Douglas squirrels. There are many different kinds of squirrels. But this guy is also a rodent. So just like that beaver, this guy is also a rodent. Another rodent includes things like mice or rats. This guy is actually referred to sometimes as a tree rat. But there's also other different kinds of animals too that we're going to discuss. So let's see what we have now. Alright, this guy's a big guy. So, we'll see on the body. And then there's the white tail. So, see that very distinctive white tail? What do you think this might be? Good, it's big. Let's see if you're right. So, this animal is very large, but something interesting about it is it changes its color based off of the season. So and location too. But during the summertime, it has a lot lighter color. So it's almost very bronzy or very light brown. While during the wintertime, it becomes a lot darker like this. Now what might that be? Good. So it's depending on the season. So during the wintertime when it's kind of dark and it's dreary, there might be snow on the ground, it wants to blend in with the area because this guy is eaten by a lot of different things. So it kind of blends in with the area. Now, what about the summertime when it's kind of green everywhere and there's light colors everywhere? So what do you think? It wants to blend in with the area then, right? So that's why it has lighter colors during the summertime. Now, as we mentioned before with that striped skunk, a male is called a buck and the female is called a doe. But what about the baby? What do you think a baby is called of this animal? A fawn, good. So a baby is called a fawn. But to warn members of its family, say danger is near, what happens? It will flip this right up, the tail, and it will kind of fly straight up that means danger. So when that flies up and danger, everybody jumps up and starts running away. What might this be? Good, this is a white-tailed deer. So this is a white-tailed deer, and deer might be found right near where you guys live. So deer are found in many different kinds of habitats. They like grasslands, they like their deserts, they also like their woods. They're very common around here, but something about them too is they're kind of dangerous too. So when you're driving or your parents are driving, deer might jump out in front of you. That's kind of dangerous. So deer, they're big and they're dangerous, but they're awesome to see. And something interesting about the males or the bucks, they have something on their head called horns or antlers. So an interesting fact about them is every single year, the buck will drop its antlers. So when they get older, they drop their antlers and they'll grow bigger, newer ones every single year. So typically in the fall is when they'll have these big, beautiful antlers, the fall and the winter time. But in the springtime, they'll lose them. All summer they grow it, and they have some around it. It's very soft. It's called velvet. That protects the antlers while they're growing. Then in the fall, they'll scratch off the velvet, and they have these beautiful antlers. And next spring, they'll lose them, drop them, and grow a new one. The antlers are actually made out of bone, so it is a very interesting fact about deer that they lose a bone every single year. Only the males do. But we'll discuss another animal now. So what is this guy? There's its head, and their body, and there's its tail. There's the belly too. Now we discussed an animal very similar to this one a little earlier. What does this kind of look like? Close, we'll see. So, this guy likes to climb actually. So it can climb 50 to 60 feet up a tree. I can't even climb 50, 60 feet up a tree. But it also can jump branch to branch to branch. Almost like a squirrel or a monkey. It will climb to one branch and it will jump over to another branch and it might jump over to another branch. But an interesting fact is it can retract its claws like a cat too. So sometimes when your cat scratches you and you look at the cat and you're like, where are its claws? Well, they have retractable claws. So sometimes the claws might be out, while other times they can be pulled in. That's retractable claws. So sometimes when your cat is angry and it scratches you, it brought its claws out. And then typically they're hidden. This guy can do the same thing. It can bring its claws out and it can bring them back in. That is what retractable claws are. Now, an interesting fact about this, it has red, it's very light under the tail. And on the top, it has a black stripe. Now, if this guy is mostly, let's say, gray, what do you think it is close to? I'll say it's in the canine family. Now, what other animals did we discuss that were in the canine family? We had the coyote, we said dog, now the red fox. If I say this is gray, what is that? Maybe might you think of? Good, this is a gray fox. So this is same to a red fox, but instead it's gray and it's a different species. So there are many different kinds of fox in the world. There's red fox, like the one that we saw. There's the gray fox, like this guy. There's also different things called fennec fox or a swift fox or even an Arctic fox, which lives up in the Arctic. Now, these are also related to your pet dog. Now, we'll discuss another animal that we have here. This guy right here. You see the face? Different colors. Now look at this tail. Very, very different color. Now what about the face? What might the face say? It's kind of have a bit of a mask on it. we'll see what this might be. Now, another name for this animal, because of its tail, see if we can see the different colors, is ringtail. Now, what animal might have a ringed tail? Now let's see. I often place my food in water to clean it. So, I don't know if you've seen the video of this animal. It takes cotton candy. If you guys eat cotton candy, you put it in water, or you eat cotton candy and it kind of melts and it just dissolves and goes anywhere. Well, this guy grabbed a piece of cotton candy, put it in the bowl because it washes its food. It put it in the bowl, started washing it, disappeared. Just like cotton candy does. So this guy put the cotton candy in the water, it disappeared. He had started worrying. So he went and grabbed another piece, stuck it in, and it disappeared again. This guy was freaking out. Where's my cotton candy? Where's my food? What happened to it? So this guy cleans its food before it eats. Now, if it cleans its food, it might live near water, or at least it might be a good swimmer, right? Well, you're right. This guy is an excellent swimmer, but it is also a climber too, because it will climb up into the trees, and if there's a hole in the tree, it will go in and live in that hole. Kind of lives there as a home. Now, something about this is the mask on my face absorbs light, which reduces glare that might otherwise bounce in my eyes and obstruct my vision. So, does that mean this guy is up all night? All day? Well, this guy is kind of both. He is nocturnal and... I just said a word there. Nocturnal. What does that mean? Nocturnal means they're active at night. But what does active during the day mean? Diurnal. So people like us are diurnal, meaning that we are up during the day. We're active during the day, while animals like this guy are active during the night. So, well, they're active during the day too, but not as much. There was a president who actually had one of these as a pet. So President Calvin Coolidge had one of these as a pet. Now, what do you think this might be now? If I live in the city, I may be more clever than my relatives who live in the country. So this guy might be digging in your garbage. What might this guy be? Good, this guy is a raccoon. So raccoons are found pretty much anywhere. They like the cities because they like to dig in your garbage, but they are also found in the country where they like to hang around in the woods. They also like the fields, the agricultural land where they can go around and eat the corn, or sometimes they like to steal the vegetables, or sometimes these two like to eat my chickens and they love to steal my eggs. So they live at a little bit of everywhere. So there's a lot of different animals and mammals all around the world. But this is just a small collection of the mammals that you can see around here. Now in Pennsylvania, we have a bunch of different mammals. These are the most common you'll see. There are also mammals that you might see, including black bears. You might see the cottontail rabbit. That's another common mammal that we have even here in the city. But mammals are very diverse species, and there are so many different animals in the world. And I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned a lot. Come back to the farm soon, and I hope you have a wonderful day and you learned lots. Thank you very much.